best finals for the NBA 2026 is going to be the New York Knicks against the San Antonio Spurs. Now, this isn't me saying that I'm adamant that this is going to happen or not. I'm not really talking about whether or not I think it's going to happen. This is just me talking about the reasons why that would be the best finals to watch and why I think that would be the case. First, I want to kind of look at the play styles of those two teams. If you look at the Knicks, they've got a very kind of organized team. I wouldn't say it's completely centered around Brunson, but it definitely is kind of, in a more traditional sense, centered around the point guard or the guards as a whole, and their playmaking skills, and having the others be, kind of assisting their plays and taking up good plays and getting into good positions. The whole entire team's play style is all about positioning and creating good opportunities. It's a lot faster paced than it was in previous years. I do think that they are kind of picking up their pace and working up their speed, but I mean, they're just impressive. I think everyone on the team is impressive. I think Kolek is kind of funny. I don't think he's that great. I think he's got a lot of potential, but I kind of think he's funny because barbecue chicken. But anyway, no, Brunson is an amazing player. Like, he's absolutely amazing. What an amazing guard. You have Hart, you have Karl Anthony Towns. You have OG Anunoby, who obviously has been injured recently and been off, not playing. But I do think that, the Knicks overall is an amazing team, and I think in every single kind of aspect, there's a lot going on with them. They have strongholds in every single position, and I think it's really impressive, kind of, how they are playing. I don't feel like the court never feels empty. It doesn't feel like, when one or two players are off on the bench, it doesn't feel like they're missing much. Although obviously when Brunson's on the court and when Karl Anthony Towns is on the court, it's a very different pace. So when their kind of main strong players are on there, it's a different pace. But they've got enough good players to where it feels like there's always a solid team on the court. So it's pretty well balanced. So I wouldn't say it's completely centered around Brunson and, we got to get Brunson in this position, we got to help Brunson do this, but it feels centered around Brunson in the traditional sense of the point guard kind of carries the team. One thing that I would say though is it seems that there is a little bit more kind of off the ball movement for Brunson than there was at one point. I feel like they're giving him a lot more of the kind of passive point guard role, in the sense where he's always getting into good positions and he's kind of, Brunson is the pillar of the team. It's like he's always there when they need support and they need someone to kind of work out their situation, and he's always kind of pushing it forward as opposed to always having the ball waiting for an opening, which I think is a lot of point guards kind of play that way, and a lot of teams get their point guards to play in a way where they, find openings all the time and they carry the ball and they're holding the ball as much as time and they have the most on the ball time. But I think now with Brunson, there's quite a lot bit more of off the ball movement and kind of arranging the team and everything. He's got a good shot, he's got good handles, he's got a good drive, he's really fast. He's overall he's the best example I can think of a point guard at his height of 6'1", 6'2". He's listed at 6'2", but in the NBA they always round up, so realistically he's 6'1". In a league, especially in this day and age where there's a lot of taller guys as well, and height is a big thing right now. But he is your perfect example of a guard. He's a shorter guy, really fast. He's got good handles, but not just good handles. He's also just got good pace and good movement, good off the ball movement. I think that's one thing that's majorly overlooked with point guards is off the ball movement. That's probably a more crucial thing for a point guard to be good at than not. They need to be able to be at certain places at certain times and have good game vision. I think that's so much more important for a point guard than actually, being able to do some crazy handles all the time. Those handles lead to good finishes for point guards, especially against guys who are bigger than them. And that's, the main benefit of being shorter is you get to have better handles and better strength and a lower center of gravity. So those nice tight movements and everything like that gives you more of an advantage and you have more control. So obviously that's a big part of playing the shorter positions, is having good handles, having good control and all of that stuff. But off the ball movement, super important. So that's all I really have to say for the Knicks right now. But the Spurs, if you look at them, they're kind of very centered around Wemby. I would never go as far to say that there aren't signs of like good, team chemistry or anything like that, because they have a lot of solid plays, they're pretty good. But I think a lot of it is about individual powerhouses and everyone kind of being individually good, as opposed to what the Knicks have, where everyone's kind of filling a spot and doing their bit. And if you look at Wemby, when he was off of his injury, Castle shined like crazy. Like, that guy really shined. And even though he was always in the spotlight and he was always getting the attention and he was always a good player, I think he was always seen as like the guy who got Wemby the ball, the guy who gave it, and he's an amazing player without Wemby. Like, he was doing so good. He was carrying the team. I mean, no one really cared about anyone else. Yeah, there's good players on the team, and I can sit there and name players that I think are good. But I think it's pretty obvious to people that Wemby and Castle are kind of the main highlights of, that team. I think they're the most important players, is kind of what I'm saying. But I think when Wemby wasn't there against the Trailblazers after his injury where he hit his head on the ground, it felt like when I was watching Castle, it felt like I was watching a player who doesn't get enough moments, to shine. And Wemby's an amazing player, but I think the Spurs are going at a completely new angle where they're centering the team around the center, Wemby, right? They're centering the team around Wemby. And traditionally, you would have Castle as the main guy, and then Wemby would be his big man, who he's like, gets in the paint. His big man who he gets to pass. His big man who he gives the ball when they're in an awkward situation. He needs to hold it up high and have some stability and allow the rest of the team to recover. And it feels kind of the other way around. It feels like Castle is the guy who's getting Wemby the ball, and Wemby's the main guy. And when they're in a sticky situation, he kind of gives it off to Castle, sort of thing. Now, obviously, this isn't true for most of the thing, but if you look at the structure of the team, it's very, very structured around Wemby. And I think the rest of the team is solid and they play well, and it's a good team outside of Wemby. I think a lot of times people kind of overlook when there is an amazing player, like a real good kind of solid player, whether that be because of height, size, whether that be because of handles or shooting or anything like that. I think people tend to overlook the rest of the team because they're really good, but they're not as good or they're not as important, so people tend to look over them. And I don't want anyone thinking, that's what I'm doing here. I'm very aware that when you watch the Spurs without Wemby, it feels like a completely different team. It feels like a whole different team, the way that they play, the way that they're structured. And I think that is a very, very clear sign of how heavily centered around Wemby this team is, as opposed to the Knicks when Brunson's off or Cat's off. When they're off the game, it's a little different, and you can tell because they're very key players. But that same structure, that stability, that kind of a little bit slower on kind of the pace, but they're like faster in their actual movements, right? So they're not rushing, but they're faster, if that makes sense. They're not like rushing to get things done. They're really taking their time, but they're quite fast and efficient. And, they're always, again, looking for that structure, looking for that good position and all of that stuff. For example, when OG Anunoby was out the game due to injury, or Brunson's on the bench, it still feels like a solid team. It still feels like they're a good team, like I said earlier. So the main reason why I think the Spurs against the Knicks would be an amazing final is, I wouldn't say it's Brunson versus Wemby. I wouldn't put it that simply, because I feel like that's a very, very simple way to put it. What I would say is it's kind of your very traditional, centered around the point guard, looking for those plays, looking for that positioning, looking for all of that stuff, against this kind of newer, centered around, Wemby's an insane center. Maybe I'm just like fucking new to this shit and I haven't seen, all of the older guys, all of the Hall of Famers, all of these, big guys in the past. But Wemby just feels different, especially because of how tall he is and in his physicality at his height. He is like a monster. Like he's fucking scary. Like, you look at this guy and you're in fear of this guy. Like, he's crazy. Because the whole thing about like, yeah, they're mad tall, but all of those buts don't apply to Wemby. he has other weaknesses. I feel like recently in the playoffs, especially against the Timberwolves, we've been seeing some kind of cracks. You know, in Wemby, we've been seeing a few different areas where he's not so good. I mean, even small things like when they're rage baiting him and he gets ejected because of the elbow, or like even just we see throughout other teams and stuff, people are really trying to find ways to kind of tackle it. And a lot of it tends to be like removing the mobility of the team. Like instead of, you know, thinking, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to just jump really high and smack it out of his hands or like whatever. It's about removing the mobility and kind of locking people down. That's the best defensive play you can do against someone who's just too tall for you to guard, is always lock them down. Really just lock them down. Keep them in uncomfortable positions. Because one thing with basketball, I would say, is a lot of people seem to think that it's all about blocking and this, that, the other. A huge thing with basketball is about probability. The game's about probability. You're always talking about what are the percentage of shots, what's the percentage of this shot, what's the percentage of this shot for this player, all that different stuff. You're always comparing players to their positions and the shots and the probability. That's because when you have an insane shooter on the free throw line, you have a fucking issue. Because one of your key defensive plays is, I'm going to push them out to the free throw line so that they probably won't make a shot if they try and make it. And they probably won't want to take the shot. That's why when you have players who are insanely good shooters, they are a worry, because it's like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to lock them up? That's why when those players tend to be shorter, you have less of an issue, because all you do is you just put guys like 6'5", 6'6" on a guys like 6'2", 6'3", and then you're done. You know what I mean? You're done. Like, you know, he's just going to smack it out of his hands. So that guy needs to do a lot of step backs, a lot of all this stuff, all this handling stuff. But again, that kind of goes full circle around. You know, what ends up happening is if they get past you, if they're quick, what you want to do is box them out so you have more distance to cover, and then the same thing kind of goes on. But that's kind of how people tend to defend Wemby successfully, when they do defend him successfully. You know, I mean, you've seen double teaming, even triple teaming, when there's not anyone else on the team that can shoot well or anyone else that's too good. I think if Wemby was on a really good team, it would be a lot harder to defend him. But again, a lot of basketball is more offensive. I feel like defense in basketball is a little less important compared to other sports. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't like when I have that opinion. A lot of people get kind of angry at me when I say that. Because I do think defense is an extremely important part, obviously. But it is more of kind of a rebuttal, a kind of back and forth about, I can make this much, you know, it's kind of that you can't guard me kind of thing. So that's why I really want to see this. I think Brunson versus Wemby and how their play styles are different and everything, you know? How can like kind of traditional playmaking, traditional centered around the point guard and structure combat kind of this new age defense and aggression that we're seeing from Wemby. And I think Wemby's, you know, insanely scary. I think the one thing about guys like Wemby is, because of health issues, because of their height, because of all this other stuff, they tend to kind of get too many injuries and their body can't keep up with them kind of peaking tactically and stuff like that. But if he's able to keep up his health and really kind of push these boundaries, he could be a huge problem for the NBA and a lot of players. And I think it would be really interesting to see how these players combat that, and how these players, you know, deal with these situations, and how they, you know, lock him down, how they deal with him and stuff like that. So I think that would be really interesting. So that's why I really want to see the Knicks against the Spurs in the finals for 2026, is I just want to see how these teams combat each other. I want to see that very stark comparison from that traditional point guard, traditional playmaking, structure, combat, all of that stuff, you know, and how that combats the new age defense and aggression that we're seeing from Wembanyama, and how much of a, you know, dominating presence he is on the court. And I think that would be really interesting to see, honestly.